И поэтому знаю, со мной ничего не случится.
You know that feeling when a game just hits different? Not the polished heroics of a big Western blockbuster, but instead something raw and unforgiving, where the world feels like it could kill you at any moment, and it probably will. That's the soul of Eastern European game design. From the irradiated horrors of the Chernobyl zone of Stalker, to the claustrophobic tunnels of Metro. We also of course have the world of The Witcher as well. These games carry out a distinct philosophy, where life is brutal, resources are scarce, and no one's coming to save you. But how did this style emerge? After the fall of the Soviet Union, developers in Ukraine, Russia and Poland were working with very limited budgets. They of course use a lot of pirated tech and just genuinely run into a whole world of real hardships. For inspiration for these titles, they drew straight from their surroundings. Look at all the abandoned factories, brutalist concrete blocks, economic collapse everywhere, all inspired by a rich literary tradition of dark and existential stories. Think of writers such as the Strugatsky brothers or Dmitry Glukhovsky. These studios weren't chasing trends back in the day, they were instead making games that felt like home. These were very ambitious, quite janky, but ultimately packed with a lot of soul. This whole genre is sometimes called Eurojank, but really it's just honest, uncompromised design. Today I want to train the lineage of this genre, from the classics that defined it, all the way down to how Western success has influenced the newer versions of these titles. Drop a like and let's get started. Let's start with the most prominent example, Stalker. This was created by GSC Game World in Ukraine. The first game dropped in 2007 and to this day it still feels unmatched. You play as a stalker, a scavenger trekking into the Chernobyl exclusion zone after a second fictional disaster turns into something otherworldly. You come across mutants, anomalies that twist physics, and deadly radiation. What makes it special is the world itself. The A-Life system, which simulates NPC behaviours, factor wars and random events when you're not actually around, is genius. You might stumble on a squad getting ambushed by bandits, or hear distant gunfire that pulls you into something unexpected. It makes the world feel very alive and dangerous. The combat of course can be pretty brutal. The guns feel rather weighty and unreliable, and jam at the worst times possible. Ammo is of course very scarce. One wrong move and an anomaly turns you into paste. These titles weren't about being an unstoppable hero like most Western titles. It was mainly about surviving through smart positioning, scavenging and knowing when to run. And atmospherically, man, it was unmatched. Those decaying Soviet buildings, rusted playgrounds, overgrown Pripyat streets weren't just backdrops. They were absolutely soaked in history. The game constantly reminds you of human arrogance and how nature ultimately reclaims everything in the end. It's very post-apocalyptic, but extremely grounded in the real trauma from Chernobyl. Stalker of course wasn't perfect however. It had a few bugs and the jank were part of the charm. But that imperfection somehow made the world feel more real. It was a truly immersive sim shooter that rewarded patience and exploration over run and gun. Next up, we have to dive into the Metro series of course. Right around the same time as Stalker, 4A Games gave us Metro 2033 in 2010. This was based on the Glukhovsky novel. The game is set in the Moscow metro after a nuclear war, where humanity huddles in underground stations while horrors roam the surface. This series nails resource tension. Bullets aren't just ammo, but they're also currency. You constantly weigh shooting versus saving them for a trade. Air filters for your gas mask constantly tick down, and you have to scavenge about to find a new one before it depletes. Stealth and careful movement are often a lot smarter than actually going loud. The storytelling shines through its linear but incredibly atmospheric levels. You witness a lot of human struggles such as cults, slavery, political infighting, and moments of hope up close. Moral choices actually matter, leading to different endings that feel earned and heavy. Visually, it leans hard into brutalist Soviet architecture. You explore the vast crumbling stations and ruined surface buildings. The contrast between the cramped tunnels and the deadly open surface is very masterfully done. Almost like people who were the masters of the earth devolved down into essentially rats hiding in tunnels. And then of course Metro Exodus pushed things further with semi-open worlds, but the core loop essentially stays the same. You're small, but the world is very vast and hostile. The games were less about power and more about what people become when everything falls apart. And of course, we can't forget about the Witcher series, especially The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. While it involves a lot of fantasy, it still carries the same Eastern European DNA. Geralt of Rivia is no chosen one, but instead a mutant hunter who's just trying to survive in a world full of war, danger and corruption. The games pull very heavily from Andrzej Sapkowski books, which are filled with cynical humour and a lot of Slavic mythology. The open world feels handcrafted and alive. Every village has its own problems and secrets. Side quests often spiral into something much darker or more personal. Your choices of course have real weight. Entire regions can change based on what you do. The real depth comes from the storytelling. It involves political intrigue between kingdoms, the cost of neutrality, as well as how good intentions lead to suffering. It perfectly captures that Eastern European fatalism, a history full of suffering, empires rising and falling, where ultimately ordinary people pay the price. The best part about The Witcher as well is that there's beauty in the resilience and folklore woven throughout the series. We also have to take a look at how Western influence shaped the more modern entries of these series. The initial games of course found massive global success, which of course brought along bigger budgets and Western publishers. And this has changed things, for better and worse. On the plus side, we got higher production values. Metro Exodus expanded scope beautifully. Stalker 2 was very ambitious. CD Projekt Red turned The Witcher 3 into a golden standard for open world RPGs, which also had a ton of influence on Western games in the future. But success also means compromise. Smoother controls and broader appeal can sometimes soften the raw jank that gave these games personality. Bigger teams and commercial pressures of course leads to more issues, like for example Cyberpunk 2077's rocky launch. There's a balancing act now, keeping that unique cultural flavour while hitting international expectations for polish and accessibility. Modern entries feel a lot more global, but man, I hope they never lose their uncompromising spirit that made them truly special. To conclude on these three titles, Eastern European games showed us a different way to design. It showed us that we can interweave worlds heavy with history, where survival is ultimately earned and consequences truly matter. They remind us that games can be more than just escapism, they can actually reflect real pain and resilience. In an industry full of power fantasies, this brutal honesty was honestly refreshing. But what do you think, is this style still going strong? Or has it evolved too much to the Western side? Drop your other favourite titles in the comments, I read them all. If you enjoyed, hit like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.